we need to be drafting players with the upside to win our fantasy leagues. That's what I have today. 5 players I am drafting everywhere I can in fantasy drafts that give us the highest ceiling possible. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's hop right into it. My first guy is Breece Hall of the New York Jets. Now, everyone says you don't want to be drafting running backs in terrible offenses. Well, Breece Hall was an outlier in that category. Last year, the New York Jets had the second fewest yards per game in the National Football League and were bottom 4 in scoring offense. Everyone saw it. Zach Wilson just couldn't get it done in New York, yet Breece Hall was still able to finish as the number 4 running back in fantasy football, averaging 17 fantasy points per game. So while the offense was horrible, Hall's talent and ability still shined and was able to get him a top 5 finish in fantasy football. And that's largely to do with his receiving game volume. A very talented receiving back, number 1 in the NFL in targets last year, number 1 in receptions as well. So not only getting the volume, also making do with that volume. In PPR leagues, Breece Hall is a must-draft player, especially when you consider former MVP Aaron Rodgers coming back to this offense. Now, he doesn't have to be MVP level quarterback to make Breece Hall a league-winning player. He just has to be an average quarterback. We talked about them being a bottom 5 offense last year. However, this offseason, the offensive line is top 5 ranked heading into the season per PFF. You get a great offensive line behind a quarterback that has valuable experience and has shown the ability to facilitate top running back finishes. We saw it in Green Bay with Aaron Jones for many years. I think Breece Hall is that just younger and more talented. Now, Breece Hall, like I said, was able to finish as the number 4 running back in fantasy. That was while he was outside the top 30 in running backs in red zone touches. Now, not very surprising, the New York Jets didn't get to the red zone very often. So Breece Hall not going to get those valuable touches. He actually only saw 1 goal line carry the entire season. Now, if you're able to finish as the number 4 running back while only getting 1 goal line carry and outside the top 30 running backs in red zone touches, impressive stats from Breece, especially if we can get any sort of offense that just resembles average in the NFL. Breece Hall is going to be a dominant running back. I have no problem drafting him. He's going actually mid to late first round in your sleeper drafts. Some other sites, he's going a little bit higher. I love drafting him in the first round and then stacking the wide receivers after him as my hero running back. I think there's very little risk with drafting Breece Hall this year. Now, my next running back, Kyren Williams, you're going to have to get him in the mid-second round. And if you miss on the top 3 running backs in Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, like we talked about, and Bijan Robinson, and you draft a wide receiver in the first round, I am slamming Kyren Williams in the second round. Now, there are some question marks with Williams. He isn't a highly drafted running back coming out of college. Also, the Rams do bring in Blake Corum in the 3rd round, but this is baked into his price. If you consider what Kyren was able to do in 2023, he would be the number 2 player off the board, most likely, coming into his 3rd season, averaging over 21 fantasy points per game in PPR leagues. Here is the list of running backs who average more fantasy points per game than Kyren Williams in 2023. Number 1, Christian McCaffrey. Number 2, that's it. Just Christian McCaffrey averaged more fantasy points per game than Kyren Williams, yet you're getting him into the mid-second round with this Blake Corum issue. I am not concerned about it. We saw the Seattle Seahawks bring in a second-round running back in Zach Charbonnet last year, and in the beginning of 2023, Kenneth Walker dominated that backfield. So it's not like we haven't seen teams go out and draft running backs to be backup players before. Now, in the beginning of the season, with Corum being a rookie, I think Kyren's going to own this backfield. Last year, he had the highest snap share among running backs in the NFL, even higher than Christian McCaffrey. And a little bit of the opposite of Breece Hall. He was number 4 in red zone touches. Not very surprising considering Sean McVay. We know what kind of offensive mind he is. He just breeds league-winning running backs. We saw it with Todd Gurley for so many years. We saw it with Darrell Henderson one stint, and now he delivers us Kyren Williams. And it's not like Kyren's game is one-sided. He does it on the ground and through the air. In 10 of his 13 games, he's given you at least 2 catches. So the floor there is so high for Kyren on a game-to-game basis. I think it's such an easy pick in round 2 if you go wide receiver in round 1. Along with this Rams offense projecting to be pretty solid this year, they lose Aaron Donald. We could see some shootouts for Sean McVay and the Rams coming. And with that in mind, the Rams have a top 15 strength of schedule for the running back position. So we could see some favorable matchups for Kyren as well to go along with this great offense he's playing in. As a mid-second round pick for a guy who was the second best running back on a points per game basis, I think it's a home run pick. Next guy I want to talk about, not a running back. It's going to be our tight end, Sam Laporta for the Detroit Lions. Now, we know for many years now, Travis Kelce has owned the tight end market in fantasy football. You've had to draft him at the end of the first round in the beginning portion of the second round. Whereas this year, the tight end one from last year, Sam Laporta, who finished number 1 at the tight end position over Travis Kelce, you're drafting him in the third round of fantasy drafts. This doesn't make any sense to me. He's going later than what Mark Andrews went in last year's draft for an ascending rookie tight end. Now, pretty amazing what he was able to do in his rookie year. The second most targets for a rookie tight end in NFL history, just behind Jeremy Shockey, who did it over 20 years ago. Now, while he's second in targets for a rookie tight end, he is number 1 in receptions for a rookie tight end. Yet people are still drafting 35-year-old Travis Kelce over him. Well, if you want to make a case for Kelce to draft, I can listen to that, but I can't listen to why Sam Laporta is going in the third round of fantasy drafts when he's coming off a number 1 tight end season, and he had basically the best rookie year for a tight end in NFL history. You're getting an ascending player in a top 10 offense in Detroit who's got injury concerns at the running back position with Jahmyr Gibbs. You got the best offensive line in the National Football League in a great offense with an ascending tight end. Be able to get Sam Laporta in the third round, especially in your standard leagues where it's 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex with 1 tight end. The percentage share of your team's output on a week-to-week basis that Sam Laporta is going to contribute to is incredible. It seriously blows my mind how you're able to get him so late when we've seen tight ends in the past be going in round 1 and 2 of your fantasy drafts. Next guy I want to talk about, getting back to the running back position, DeAndre Swift for the Chicago Bears. Comes over to Chicago in the offseason, signs a 3-year contract, $24 million. Some quick math there, $8 million per year, $15 million guaranteed. Becomes the 7th highest paid running back in the National Football League. So it's not chump change, a veteran minimum just to become a part of a committee back in Chicago. I believe Swift is going to own this backfield with this contract. Now, Swift is coming off the worst year of his career fantasy-wise. In his rookie year, he starts off as RB8. Finishes RB15 the following year, and this past year in Philadelphia, he is RB24. So yes, the worst year of his career, he's a top 24 running back, and you're getting him at average draft position 63 overall. Now, a lot of that has to do with the lack of receiving work he saw in Philadelphia. He had the lowest reception number of his entire career, which makes sense. You have a running quarterback in Jalen Hurts. They aren't going to check the ball down as much as a pocket passer. So he wasn't being utilized to his full capabilities in Philadelphia. Despite that, he still had a pretty solid fantasy year, 12.5 fantasy points per game. And over the last 2 seasons, he's averaging 5 yards per carries. There's no secret it's a talented running back. While some people may think Roschon Johnson and Khalil Herbert control a portion of this backfield, I think DeAndre Swift is the clear-cut number 1, especially in an offense that might be very improved this season. You have, obviously, the number 1 overall pick in the draft, Caleb Williams. You bring in Keenan Allen, a veteran slot wide receiver. DJ Moore's been a top 10 wide receiver the past couple of seasons. And you draft a top 10 wide receiver, Rome Odunze, in the NFL draft. This offense, if it ends up being a top 10 offense, similar to what the Houston Texans had last year with their rookie quarterback, DeAndre Swift could be a league-winning player where you're getting him in drafts, considering he's going after pick 60, coming off a 1,000-yard rushing season. And not only that, the Chicago Bears, well, they've had very poor offensive line play the past couple of seasons. They're projected to be a top 12 offensive line unit in 2024. With a good quarterback, maybe relying on some checkdowns at the running back position for a guy that excels in the receiving game, I think DeAndre Swift is a great pick in fantasy, especially if you go hero running back. You draft your stud running back in the first round, load it up with wide receivers, tight ends in the middle rounds, and come back and get Swift as your RB2. I think there's a lot of upside in this pick, and I don't see him being vultured by a committee in Chicago. Last guy I want to talk about, Jake Ferguson. We're going back to the tight end position. It's not very exciting, but I think there's some value here. He's being drafted as the 11th tight end off the board, which is confusing because he finished as the number 9 tight end last year. Another ascending young player. Now, obviously, the receiving game is going to be funneled through CeeDee Lamb in Dallas, but he can't catch every single pass. And we saw Jake Ferguson, he had over 100 targets last year. Not only did he have over 100 targets, he also had the important targets coming in the red zone. He was the number 1 most targeted tight end in the red zone from the 20-yard line inside. Also the most targeted player inside the 10 and 5-yard lines. So when it comes down to the red area, the green area, as some people call it, scoring those touchdowns, Ferguson's the guy that the Cowboys are looking to. The reason I like drafting him, he's not just a touchdown-dependent tight end. Well, that's one of the more positive aspects from his game from a fantasy perspective. This guy also gets a serious amount of volume in Dallas. He was top 10 in yards, receptions, and targets at the tight end position. Not only that, he was also the number 6 tight end from a yards after the catch perspective. So he's shown the ability to have a little bit of wiggle in his game to extend plays and get downfield. This Cowboys team, they lose Tony Pollard, their number 1 running back from a season ago. They also lose Michael Gallup, a staple wide receiver for many years. So there could be even more of a reliance on Jake Ferguson this year alongside CeeDee Lamb. While Brandon Cooks is the number 2 wide receiver option, he is 30 years old. I think in an offensive juggernaut like Dallas has been, there's some value drafting Ferguson at tight end 11. I think he has top 5 upside at the position. And if you can't go get a Sam Laporta in the 3rd round, I think Jake Ferguson's the next best option from a value perspective. Now, those are my 5 must-draft players. We did 5 must-draft wide receivers last week. Go check that video out. I think we have a couple league winners on that video as well. Let me know what you think of these 5 guys. We started with Breece Hall, Kyren Williams, Sam Laporta, DeAndre Swift, and finished it with Jake Ferguson. Let me know if you agree that these are must-draft players in fantasy football, or tell me why I'm stupid, why I'm wrong, why these players need to be avoided. Let me know in the comment section. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more fantasy football content. We have our wide receiver and running back sleepers for 2024 coming out very soon. That's going to do it here. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of The Fantasy Birds.